Now, one thing is for certain is that the series With Love, Meghan by Netflix is by far the worst ratings disaster in the past 5 to 6 years, maybe even more than that, because of how inauthentic it really is and who it stars. The fact that nobody wants to see Meghan Markle in a show on Netflix is only making matters worse. But to actually really focus here on what's really going on, there's also a lot of internal issues happening right now over at Netflix, as well as everything going on in the public eye. You know, we all know that Meghan Markle is on this damage control train to really level the backlash down, to water down the pushback, and it is not working at all. It is working to no avail, and it's only making matters worse, if anything, right? The more damage control you do with this show, the more damage it's going to do anyway to the Netflix image, and this is exactly why subscribers are leaving in droves. But let's be honest, it's not just because of Meghan Markle. A lot of it also has to do with the fact that rates are going up, you know, prices are going up and increasing for Netflix as a streaming platform, and hence why people are moving on to others like HBO Max, Amazon, Peacock, etc., etc. But let's move on from all of this. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Meghan Markle right now is that yes, we already know that the ratings disaster is already beginning to show in the public eye. People are beginning to really just express how they thought about the show, and it's not looking good one bit. Both internally and publicly. We already know that 7 failed test screenings was the major sign, you know, just a couple of days ago of how much of a disaster this show is going to be. However, when it comes down to some bombshell news surrounding Meghan Markle, well, this is where it gets very interesting. Now, with Netflix already dealing with intense backlash after the release of the show With Love, Meghan on their streaming platform, one massive development that is now active involves more to do with Meghan Markle and her recent behavior after the release of her series on Netflix was a total disaster from both her fans and non-fans. A crucial update to this entire situation now involves how Netflix executives and even the board of directors just recently made a swift move after Meghan Markle's show With Love, Meghan failed to deliver both internally and to the public. Now, their latest action involved how they decided to cancel all meet and greets for Meghan Markle's new show With Love, Meghan, since, of course, prior to the ratings disaster with the test screenings, and now for the public, she was going to actually go on a total of, get this, 20 meet and greets with fans and followers of her own that looked forward to her show. All of these meet and greets were suddenly cancelled in the midst of the ratings already going downhill for the show. To make matters worse for Meghan Markle is that she is trying to fight this decision by the board, and that is working to no avail. Now, one other shocking development here is that there was indeed a scene edited together for the show where the actual intro for her series was going to focus on the LA fires. Now, Meghan and her team actually had done some post-production work which involved voiceover work to narrate over footage of her time at the LA fires to be used in the series With Love, Meghan. Now, this was just deleted from the final cut of the show just days ago, around 6 days to be exact, after the board specifically demanded the editing team working on the show for Netflix to axe the intro altogether, which was going to be a whopping 6-minute opener focusing on Meghan Markle's time during the LA fires. Now, Markle reportedly felt very betrayed and offended by the board, since the board tended to be on her side, as opposed to the Netflix CEO Greg Peters and the executives over there. Now, Meghan is already demanding Netflix to release this scene as a deleted scene later down the road. However, get this, the Netflix board of directors specifically made a demand, an actual move to the creatives behind the show to lock it up in the vault forever and never to see the light of day. It turns out the board realized that even a scene like this was too much for them to even handle, and that it would indeed create more backlash. So guys, look, I think that this is exactly why she visited the LA fires at the end of the day. It all makes sense, it's all coming together, and that's why she was there for like, what, 18 minutes? She wasn't really there all that long, and that's why cameras were on her, that's why she wanted to use footage there of her time at the LA fires to shoehorn that into the series With Love, Meghan. Turns out that was indeed the case, but it never made the final cut of the series. Turns out even the board of directors eventually had common sense, to a certain degree at least, that this show would have created even more backlash, because not just of the show itself, But the fact that they were going to use the LA fires to their own advantage, it just goes to show you how out of place that would have been, how offensive it would have been to those that actually lost their homes, family members and friends, and went through a living hell throughout, of course, a number of weeks. I mean, that was just terrible, and the fact that they wanted to do that for Netflix is also a very terrible thing. Now, this is where it gets really interesting to top things off here. We already know that Meghan Markle is one that is trying to actually save this show at all costs. However, finally, one other surprising turn of events involved how Meghan Markle also had a scene that was filmed in the show where she was bashing President Donald Trump for episode 3. Her rant about Trump and his politics in the 2024 election was going to be a central conversation and rant in the episode while she was cooking in her home with Mindy Kaling and her character. Now, this was ultimately scrapped, and Meghan was furious after the scene got deleted, and is appalled that the board turned their back on her ever since Trump has been pushing for politics to remain out of entertainment for both film and television. The Trump political conversation in her show lasted roughly 5 whole minutes for episode 3. And look, like I've said before, this is exactly why a lot of the test screeners that took part in the screening of episodes 1 through 8 really despised the show. They actually said that there were a lot of political moments in the series, and turns out a lot of those political moments, if not all, got scrapped and got canceled outright. And so far, you're not really seeing too much of anything like that in this show per se, in that realm. But the fact that she went on a rant, the fact that she went on this deep conversation about Trump and his politics in a show about cooking and housework and her hobbies is just utterly ridiculous, and it just goes to show you how out of place not just Meghan Markle was, but also how the Netflix team working on this show truly were just trying to drag politics into this series, as was Meghan. We know that Meghan Markle is very political as well. She wanted to drive that into the show, and it did not work in the long run. And look, we talked about how the board, they are the ones that are so misguided. They are the ones that have been backing Meghan Markle for so long. They are the ones that supported her through and through, and now they're beginning to actually slowly turn their back against her. They want nothing to do with her anymore. At least a good 40 to 50% of those members want nothing to do with Meghan Markle anymore. But the executives, CEO Greg Peters, they want her out. They don't want a contract renewal. They don't want more shows with her. And it's basically a big divide right now over at Netflix. There is a big shakeup happening as we speak, and we'll have a lot more to talk about that in the coming days. So again, focus on the Rotten Tomatoes score. You're going to begin to see this thing go down and down. Roughly speaking, right now, it's bouncing back and forth around 14 to 12%. That is not a good look, especially for day one on March 4th, where we stand today, for the release of With Love, Meghan. This could very well be by far one of the worst releases under Netflix, and by far something that could really damage the image of Greg Peters, the Netflix CEO over there. Don't be too shocked if this could very well lead to him in the future or in the near future resigning and a new CEO coming on board. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I'll catch you guys later.